Hi, welcome to Rocky Mountain Views. I'm your host, Martha Thompson. As many of you, actually as all of you who live in Colorado know, and many around the world know, on June 23rd, 2012, we had a horrific tragedy here. It was the Waldo Canyon fire. And life was in an uproar. No one knew what to do. The fire, I believe, was officially out July 12th. But during that time, there was mass pandemonium. Fortunately for us, there was one man who soon found many others to follow him that knew how to pull things together, to help, to offer assistance in ways no one imagined, and that man is Bob Cutter.
Good afternoon.
Bob, I'm so happy that you're here. You're the head of Colorado Springs Together.
Thank you for having me.
I'm thrilled to have you here because you're doing great stuff. You did great things immediately after the fire, and you are still doing wonderful things.
Thank you.
So, hallelujah, the fire's over, but now we have 347 homes lost. We have many more damaged at this point in 2012. And where did you even come up with the ideas to begin, and who did you decide was on your team and why?
Well, I think obviously it was probably, just about a day or so after the fire raged through Mountain Shadows. The mayor got hold of me early one morning, 6:30 in the morning, while I was out walking the dogs. And he had the idea. He said, I think our first responders did a fabulous job responding to a fire that has just ripped through Mountain Shadows. We honestly do not know how many homes have been lost. It may be 400, it may be 500, it may be more. We do not know. Mm-hmm. But I would like you to look at leading a private sector team to drive the recovery efforts. Our first responders did a fabulous job on the response, but we have no textbook for recovery.
Right.
So that led to me doing some quick research that evening and came up with the idea, as we've used in industry to address many problems in the high-tech world, really a community team, a cross-functional team, to go address the challenge of recovery. So over the next couple of days, made many phone calls, asked many of my friends whether they'd step up and be part of that. And I can say every one of them said yes. And so on July the 3rd, 2012, Colorado Springs Together was born. It was incorporated, and we had our first team meeting.
That's remarkable how quickly that came together. And I've got to say, I'm not surprised that people stepped up, because I don't know, living in Colorado Springs, I can tell you, I really don't even know of one individual who in some way did not step up.
Yeah.
So congratulations to these people, though, because they knew they weren't stepping up for a day or a week. There's a serious job to do.
Yes.
Now, it came together quickly. You even had a website put together in, 2 weeks?
Yes, we had, it was actually on July the 9th, we had our press conference, and that was the same day that we announced the website was up and live, thanks to actually a local company, 30 DPS, who their staff have been wondering after the fire. What you just said, great example. They'd been wondering after the fire, how do we get involved? And so I contacted Jeff Thomas, who I'd known before. He said, that's perfect, that's what we do. So his staff, he pretty much dedicated his whole company at no charge for 3 weeks in July to put together our website, online payments, offers of help, needs for help, all those features on the website in very short order.
That's remarkable. And then you came to, because this of course has come in stages, then you came to, okay, everything's out, immediate needs are met, people have spoken to their insurance adjusters, we're looking at a disaster area. And in some ways I think this was maybe even more painful than a natural disaster, because we know it was man-made. Whether by accident or intentional, it didn't have to happen. I think that makes it far more painful for many of us. But in looking at what was left, I believe you told me there were 30,000 cubic yards of debris removed?
That's correct. Well, the biggest challenge, obviously, I think
Mind-blowing.
at that stage, that weekend before the 4th of July, the neighborhood was still smoldering. Things were still on
Yes.
fire. And thanks to Colorado Springs utilities and the efforts of so many people, the neighbors were able to get back into the neighborhood, those who still had homes. The challenge we were faced with is Mountain Shadows is about 2 square miles. And although there were some areas that there was total destruction, in many other areas it was 1 home there, 4 homes over here. Others were still standing. And so it was a very different type of wildfire impact. And so really from the start, the biggest thing we felt we could offer people was speed. And one of the ways that we felt to send a very clear message to those people that there was hope, there was a future after all this destruction, was to get the debris out of the neighborhood as quickly as possible. And so, yes, we removed probably over a period of 3 to 4 months, 30,000 cubic yards of primarily ash, steel, destroyed cars, those sorts of things.
It's amazing to me. And you attribute this to what you told me are the 3 C's. Tell me about the 3
Yes,
C's.
I mean, Colorado Springs Together is very different compared to perhaps other philanthropic organizations who were engaged at the time. We made it very clear we were not about taking care of human needs. There's the United Way, the Red Cross, Care and Share, all those organizations very skilled in doing that. What we were about was communication, collaboration, and coordination, bringing the community together with the neighbors. Very important to have them involved as well, involve the very people who have been impacted by the disaster,
Right.
and really leverage the power of the people of Colorado Springs and the businesses in Colorado Springs to mount this phenomenal recovery effort.
And you also had the government of El Paso County, and I'm assuming probably parts of Teller County, but definitely El Paso County involved in it, because there was red tape that you found a way to get around. Talk to me about that, because that's a huge accomplishment for anyone who's ever dealt with red tape.
And this is an example of that cross-functional team.
Okay.
So on the team were representatives from El Paso County, City of Colorado Springs, Pikes Peak Regional Building, Fire Department, Police Department, Regional Housing and Building Association, the Pikes Peak Association of Realtors. Again, what we looked at it is, here we've had a neighborhood that's been absolutely devastated. What skill sets, what talents do we need to recover, restore, and rebuild that neighborhood? So it was kind of the who's who from the public sector, the private sector, nonprofits, and the neighbors themselves.
So codes, building requirements that normally would have taken weeks, if not months.
Yeah, I mean, a great success, and clearly everybody contributed.
Yes.
But certainly a great shout out to the Regional Building Department here. Within a week, they had developed, if you like, a process by which people could rebuild their homes. Very pragmatic view. That being, if your home was built in the 1990s, as many of them were, late 80s, early 1990s in Mountain Shadows, then the Regional Building Department said, look, we are going to require that you conform to current life safety codes, but we are not going to impose the local building codes of 2012 on a home that had existed very successfully for many years. So they were able to do that. Also, another example, if you have selected a semi-custom home, say that's typically built by Vantage Homes or Classic or one of those, and it's been built somewhere else in Colorado Springs, if you bring those plans in, they provide an expedited review. So in many cases, people were getting the plans for their homes reviewed and approved in literally a matter of a few days.
And see, this is why you've spoken. FEMA has actually been looking at this as a national model.
Yes. Yes, we've certainly had visits from FEMA Region 8. We've continued to have discussions with them about the concept of using Colorado Springs Together as a model for community engagement, because from their perspective, recovery from a disaster has to be driven from within the community that it's in, because those are the people that know best what resources exist and what needs to be done.
I think they also are the people that need to participate in it the most.
Yes.
Because if you feel that your life has been, as you've known it, has been taken away, you want to be a part of it to heal.
Yes.
So it works for me. I think that's a great idea, but kudos, congratulations to you for developing such a successful model.
Thank you.
Now we can get to some fun stuff here, because there's still a lot of work to be done. If it sounds like everything's been so great that it's all been taken care of, almost, not quite. There's still a lot of things to be done, and there's still people that have fallen in the gap where insurance has not covered things that are much needed and things that we take for granted every day. So there's still quite a bit to be done. But Bob and his team have come up with some terrific events, and one of which you're aware of if you watch our show is called Ashes to Art. It's the incredible artwork of Steve Weed. Steve and his wife Lori were on our show. He's used charcoal and ashes from the fire to create just pieces of absolute beauty that, even though I was prepared, brought tears to my eyes. They're amazing. And there's going to be an auction. Please tell us about that, how people need to get an invitation, if so, and where it's going to take place.
Yes, so Steve and his wife Laurie have very kindly donated 20 pieces of art, watercolors, oil paintings in various shapes, sizes, formats, and medium. And they've donated those to Colorado Springs Together. And so what we're doing is auctioning those off at the Garden of the Gods Club on Monday the 24th of June from 6 in the evening till 9 in the evening.
All right.
And the proceeds from that auction will all go to the residents of Mountain Shadows to build the Mountain Shadows Waldo Canyon Fire Memorial, which will be built in Mountain Shadows Park. And we expect that memorial, a very significant memorial, memorializing the 2 people who lost their lives,
yes,
as well as the 347 families that lost their homes, and the thousands of others that were damaged by smoke and ash. So I think a very significant memorial for Colorado Springs, and obviously a very significant memorial for the Mountain Shadows community to be unveiled in 2014. So again, the auction will take place on Monday the 24th. People can find details about the auction by going to our website, www.coloradosprings.together.org.
Okay.
And right there on the home page will be a big arrow that says Steve Weed Art Auction.
Great.
Click on that. You can see the art. We have the art available for viewing online, and you can see how you can RSVP to attend that event.
And it's currently still available to view in person as well.
Absolutely. The art can right now be viewed at the Chapel Hills Mall. Many of the pieces will be making a transition to the airport. And then in addition, many of the pieces will be displayed at the State of the City address that the mayor is making at the International Center next Thursday lunchtime. So we expect to have a couple of pieces of art flanking the speakers at that event, as well as in the registration area.
Wonderful. And prints were also set aside as gifts. Let's talk about those.
Indeed they were. So next week on Tuesday, Laurie and Steve will be giving prints of, I believe, 2 of the pieces to the local firefighters at a ceremony that will be covered by the media. Okay. I'm sure it'll be very, very emotional and very meaningful on both sides, both for Steve and his wife and the firefighters. And so they will be giving prints out to them and to be displayed either at their homes or in their fire stations throughout Colorado Springs.
Fantastic. And we do love our first responders here. We're so grateful to them. I don't know that that's ever going to fade. We're so proud of them. And we have more events coming because, again, one event's not going to cover the immense damage and need that these folks face.
Yeah, so I think the big event, the major event, will actually take place on the 12-month anniversary of the fire, actually 2 days after the auction.
Okay.
So June 26th of this year, and it will be in the Mountain Shadows Park. And we, through our sponsors, Comcast, the title sponsor, as well as Memorial Hospital and several others, have enabled the funding for this first event to take place. It will be the kickoff to the Philharmonic Summer Concert Series. And so the Philharmonic will be performing along with the Flying W Wranglers. The Flying W Ranch will be catering the event. Josh and Johns will be providing dessert, children's chorale, and to your point, there will be a very, very significant and very major recognition for the first responders that will be right at the start of that event. So Jerry Ma will be there, and she will be part of that event with many of our local community leaders in Mountain Shadows Park, and that runs 6 till 10 o'clock in the evening on Wednesday, the 26th of June.
Terrific. And we'll make sure that all of that information is available on screen, so you'll have all of that. We're also going to have some graphics up of Steve's beautiful work, so not to worry if you can't find it at Colorado. It's not CST. I keep wanting to say CST.
Well, CST
Colorado.
is the abbreviation. Don't worry. Everybody says CST.
Yes, sorry.
So www.coloradosprings.together.org.
Together, yeah, okay. coloradosprings.together.org. So we'll have all that information. Now I want to get to some personal stories, because what we've been talking about are facts and figures. And yes, there have been other organizations that do what they do. Nobody can beat the Red Cross. Nobody can beat these other organizations, Salvation Army, that step in. Food donations flooded in. They were turning things away. The people of this area are incredibly generous. And I'm very, very proud to live in this state because of the way people respond to those in need. And there is also Aspen Point, who is available, has been making themselves available.
Yeah,
Let's talk about that,
yeah,
because that's a need that is not monetary. It can't be replaced by stuff, and it is a day-to-day, deep-seated need.
Yeah, as I came to learn, getting involved in this recovery business.
Yes.
I think the two things that struck me. Number one, I think the range of responses, the range of different inputs from insurance companies dealing with the claims that you alluded to earlier. But perhaps even more than that was the tremendous range of human reaction, human emotions after being faced with that level of devastation. And we're very thankful that Aspen Point was funded to provide a crisis counseling team for a year. They have been in our Colorado Springs Together Center with us from the start, and they have provided an incredible component to address the human dynamic of disaster recovery. As we've talked, debris removal, foundation removal, construction, new landscaping, that's all very physical.
Yes.
But underneath all of that is a very human aspect, and Aspen Point were a key part of that. Their work continues. They were able to do seminars. They were able to reach out literally door to door in the neighborhood, asking people if they needed help. How were they doing? Here's some information. Private counseling sessions was extremely valuable. And I don't think we would be as far advanced in the recovery process if it wasn't for their equal effort on the human side as many other organizations have made on the physical side.
I can't agree more with that, because it's very easy to see if a foundation needs replacing. It's very easy to see what damage is to a home. There's very real post-traumatic stress. It doesn't just happen to those who serve our country.
Right.
Post-traumatic stress disorder is a very, very real phenomena. And I'm thinking today of our friends in Oklahoma who are living with that right here, right now. And most of us are not trained to know what those symptoms look like, how they manifest, and most of all, how to help. And I'm extremely grateful to Aspen Point for having been there and done everything that they have, because how would most of us know?
Correct.
We just know someone's not quite okay. Maybe they're not coming around as quickly as we are, after we've gone through this, but
Yeah. But I think a great way to look at it, until, in a way, you are whole or on your way to recovery mentally, emotionally, it's very difficult for you to move forward with your physical rebuilding. So talking to
Absolutely.
people about filling out their insurance paperwork or engaging with a builder to start doing a new home design. If people haven't got themselves back up emotionally, it's extremely difficult for them to move forward with all the tasks.
just
that they're
doing the
faced with.
paperwork can be
Yeah.
overwhelming. So yes, and I'm really glad that we spent time talking about that, because that matters. You also have stepped in on a couple of things where you've just gone above and beyond, and he's he's a man that does not want me to to tout all that he does, but I'm extremely impressed by some of the things that you've done. So please talk about some of your experiences. I know the first one I'm thinking of involves a phone number.
Indeed.
But I do want to hear about what you've done, Bob, because I don't know if you slept more than 4 hours a night since you started this. So I know you've been busy doing all kinds of things. So please.
No, I think, and obviously, again, and it gets back to the kind of the emotional side. As we opened up the center at the end of August, obviously we had people coming through the doors with all sorts of problems.
Yes.
You know, where do we find a place to live? You know, and problems that you would expect. And as we listened to people and engaged with them, we quickly found out there's some things that we would take as being very trivial, but for them it was just another item on the list of hundreds of tasks that they needed to do to get their lives back together. So the example that you were referring to, a couple, probably I'd say in their mid to late 60s, came in, they lost their home in the fire, and within a week they said, well, we lost our home, so therefore we will cancel our phone service and we'll cancel our cable service and we'll cancel our utilities and everything else because we have no home.
Right. Logic.
And
tells
logical.
you that's what
Yep.
you need to do.
So here we were 6 weeks after the fire. These people had found themselves some rented accommodation on the other side of Colorado Springs. They had called up their cable provider who was going to provide them with voice, video, and data. And then they found that they could not have their old phone number back. The phone number that they'd had for 20 odd years, ever since they'd lived in Mountain Shadows. Every bill, every record, every piece of paper had that phone number on it.
Every long lost friend.
Because CenturyLink, who provided their phone system for them, had, understandably, when they cancelled their contract, CenturyLink's assumption was they were moving out of town. No need to keep 719 blah, 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 blah together. So, you know, that was one example where I was able to intervene, and kudos to both the CenturyLink and the Comcast folks. Called up CenturyLink, and they said, okay, we understand, no problem, we'll take care of it. And, you know, even though they had to hand the phone number effectively over to their competition, Comcast, and within 2 days, that problem was resolved. And the wife called me up and just to express her thanks, because it was just one less task that they had to work on.
It's their line to the world. My mother's had her phone number since dirt.
Yeah.
And so I understand that. What of some of the other things, the kinds of things that people have come to you for, that perhaps the organization isn't set up for, but you do what you do?
Yeah, and I think really this is part of that coordination and collaboration. You know, could we cover all the bases? No. There were some logical ones in terms of insurance, in terms of building, right, getting people connected on those fronts. But in many other cases, it was how to interface with their homeowners association, how to find their covenants. So we were able to find, the county was very helpful, had all the covenants online, got us copies. We were able to post those on our website so people could go onto our website as they were rebuilding, click on their address. Here was a drop-down menu. Up came their covenants, up came their architectural standards. They knew what they had to do to rebuild.
See, I just find all this remarkable. And we will be putting everything, all of the events, all of that on board. Now, because FEMA has talked to you about doing this, what is your advice to the folks in Moore? What is your advice to people who are facing this right now.
Yeah.
If you could talk to their mayors.
I think lessons learned from here, and by the way, I think lessons learned from the disasters in the United States over the last 8 years. Number one, get a community team together. And get a community team that is motivated to drive solutions, eliminate bureaucracy, focus on the end point, just like we would do in business. You focus on the customer, you focus on customer satisfaction, and you know in business you have to do it quicker, cheaper, faster, better product than anybody else to win. Well, in this particular case, you still have customers and you still have to have that mentality. So, have that focus. If you can drive it by the private sector, absolutely do it that way. Number two, be in it for the long haul. So many people said, when we started Colorado Springs together, you'll be here for 2 or 3 months and then, you'll be gone. And our philosophy was no, we can certainly see a clear path for us to be here for 12 to 18 months. And really it's gauged, what is the state of recovery of the community? And many examples in FEMA's lessons learned reports where recovery organizations, call it good way, way too soon. The recovery collapses. They have to reconvene another team and start all over again. Meanwhile, of course, the residents have lost hope. They get frustrated. They move away. Emotional
greatly.
stresses, exactly. You actually increase the impact by doing it that way. And so I think, and perhaps lastly, is make sure that you do involve the residents who have been impacted by the disaster. Include them in the decision making. Include them in, do you have a crime problem, right, that's pervasive in an area which has been destroyed because people are coming in to loot? Well, listen to what the residents need to protect their property. So I think those are probably the 3 key things.
Well, I can't thank you enough, and I know we've got just a short time left here, so we're going to close out today quietly with some photography from what happened during the fire to what's been happening since, and again remind you of the auction of Steve Wheat's work on the 24th of this month. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for being here. You're a remarkable man, and you've done great things for our city.
Thank you.